continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
For too long, American Indian tribes have faced a competitive disadvantage when litigating against powerful forces. With its American Indian law and policy practice, Robbins Kaplan, LLP, seeks to redefine excellence for high-stakes litigation in Indian country. They have worked hand-in-hand with tribes to implement the Tribal Law and Order Act, fighting against diminishment of tribal lands and natural resources, and improving public safety on reservations. The Robbins Kaplan American Indian Law and Policy Practice serves tribes and individuals on commercial, government investigations, agency and tribal boundary disputes, as well as personal injury. Founded and led by former United States Attorneys Brendan Johnson and Tim Purdon, their American Indian Law and Policy Practice exists to bring justice to tribal clients whose claims in the past have been dismissed or ignored due to their underdog status. If you or your tribe are facing legal issues, contact robinskaplan.com or call toll-free at 1-800-553-9910.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lulia. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low of 39, then sunshine on Friday and a high of 56. Winter is just around the corner, and Standard Heating and Air Conditioning doesn't want you to get left out in the cold. Save $1,500 before rebates on a new heater and air conditioner combo. Standard Heating and Air Conditioning, the comfort you deserve.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You're listening to Native Roots presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Ogimaa, which means distant thunder. My colonized name is Robert Pilot, and we discuss local and national Native news and events. As you all know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Robbins Kaplan.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we have Robbins Kaplan again as a sponsor, giving him a big shout out. Hey, want to shout everyone out as much as we can. But I'm here with Ogimaa, and we have Robert Lilligren on later today. And what I'd like to do is start right up with Ogimaa with the news. Welcome, Ogimaa.
Hi, Nimbuju, everybody. I'm Ogimaa Giniw Ikwe. As always, I bring you the news on Native Roots Radio, and as always, I want to start with a little bit of news on the Line 3 front here in northern Minnesota. There are calls out now for greater accountability as Enbridge has continued to pollute water along the Line 3 route.
During the construction of Line 3, Enbridge had dozens of spills of drilling fluid, which polluted the water at more than 60% of their horizontal directional drilling sites in northern Minnesota. And now environmental groups along the Line 3 route who are opposed to Line 3, are urging state and federal agencies to step in as the pollution along the Line 3 continues to surface. The construction of the pipeline was said to be completed in September, but the weather has shifted and the spilled drilling fluid has continued to emerge all along the pipeline route. The drilling fluid is known to contain numerous polluting chemicals. The list is full of chemical. Though the full list of chemicals, is a trade secret that's protected, despite that these spills violated Enbridge's permits from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, the MPCA did not take any action to hold Enbridge Energy accountable or to revise or revisit their permits. The Minnesota Department of Natural Resources did require Enbridge to pay $3.32 million in a fine and restoration costs in September for an aquifer breach that led to the release of more than 24 million gallons of groundwater. Then the DNR confirmed an additional aquifer breach at other but did not confirm their locations. Enbridge is now 18 days past the deadline set by the DNR to clean up the public aquifer breach and has paid an additional $40,000 meant to compensate the state for the lost groundwater, but neither state or federal agencies have taken any action to reevaluate the company's permit to operate Line 3 given these violations. Winona LeDuc, who's the executive director of Honor the Earth and joins us on our show pretty regularly, says that Honor the Earth is demanding a federal environmental impact statement, or EIS, and that a crime is being committed here in Minnesota, and they want a federal or state agency to stop Enbridge with a full EIS statement, and that the state of Minnesota and its agencies have failed to adequately protect the waters and people of Minnesota, especially the Anishinaabe people. So that's a quick update on where Line 3 sits for that. I do want to get into, since it's Thursday, we try to kind of stay more international. And we haven't gotten to talk too much about the International Climate Summit. So right now, there's plans in the making for next week. I want to give everybody a heads up that Indigenous leaders, state legislators, educators, and researchers, as well as other water protectors, are going to present a Line 3 panel on November 9th at the U.S. Climate Action Centre in Glasgow, Scotland. So that is going to be a really, really big event. Ashley Fairbanks will represent Honor the Earth. There's going to be Minnesota State Representative Frank Hornstein, Julia Nurburn, who's the Executive Director of Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, Shah Muriel Ongalung who's the Indian Environmental Network Media Coordinator, Rupali Podki, who's from McAllister, Ellen Anderson from the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, Frank Bebeau, who's the attorney for the White Earth Nation, and Ron Turney, also of the White Earth Nation, will be appearing virtually. And the Minnesotans who are coming to that are going to draw the connection between Line 3 and Line 3 releasing the carbon equivalent of 50 coal power plants and the ongoing climate crisis that the UN has called a code red for humanity. The panel is also going to talk about the damage that Enbridge's tar sands oil pipeline has brought in northern Minnesota, including the breaching of at least 3 aquifers that we know of, and one that has been hemorrhaging, hundreds of thousands of gallons of water a day since it was hit in January. So this is dramatic that this is going to be going onto the international level. So again, next Tuesday, November 9th from 5 to 6 a.m. Central Time, which is 11 to 12 p.m. in Greenwich Mean Time, which is the time that it is in Glasgow, Scotland. The U.S. Climate Action Centre of Glasgow, Scotland will be live streaming the event, as well as Honor the Earth. So you can go to Honor the Earth on Facebook to check out their live stream, or we will post the link for the U.S. Climate Action Center in Glasgow's website onto Native Roots Radio's Facebook page, because it's not an easy URL for me to give you guys. But definitely go to Honor the Earth. They'll be live streamed there as well. I don't know how I feel. I'm excited to see Line 3 taking a really international stage like this, Robert. I don't know how you're feeling about that.
Well, the more we talk about it, the more hopefully the press and people around the whole world can see the plight of Indigenous people which is not just here in the United States, but everywhere. Indigenous people of their countries are getting pooped on all the time.
Exactly. And I talked a little bit about that yesterday. There's Indigenous people from all over the world represented at the International Summit, or COP26 in Glasgow this year, and many of them are talking about how those who have stood up to fight for the environment have actually been murdered by companies in the process of standing up for the rights of Mother Nature. There's another interesting event that's going around. I want to let everybody know. So there's the 5th annual International Rights of Nature Tribunal, which is happening parallel to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is known as COP26. So if you want more information or you want to check out the amazing virtual Zooms and webinars that they're having, make sure that you go on over to their website. And for some reason, I apparently don't have it in front of me. My apologies, everybody. I do believe it's the international, I think it's rightsofnaturetribunal.org is the website. So excuse me on that one. rightsofnaturetribunal.org is the website you want to go to. And they have information on the climate change case, information on the Amazon case. And these are all rights of nature cases, talking about the verdicts on the climate change case and the Amazon case. And then there'll be a press conference this Friday, tomorrow. Again, the time is given in Greenwich Mountain Time, which is about 1700 hours. And they're about 5 hours ahead of us in that time from where we are now. So that puts it, I don't know about, that would be 2 p.m. there. So that'd be about 9 a.m. here.
You're running out of fingers counting there, I see.
Exactly. And then also happening at the in Glasgow this week is on Sunday, November 7th, 2021 at 12 p.m. Glasgow time, which is Greenwich Mean Time is 7 a.m. Central Time, is an international water ceremony. And they invite Indigenous peoples to gather for a water ceremony during the 26th conference of parties at the COP26 in Glasgow. The ceremony will be led by North American Indigenous water carriers, and that water is sacred, and many have traveled thousands of kilometers for water, with water from their homelands for this ceremony. And it's going to be happening at the La Passionaria statue in Glasgow. And I think it's just going to be beautiful to see that as well. International water ceremony. So everybody make sure you're checking in on what's happening over at Glasgow this week.
Yeah. Hey, as always, Peony Gigi, thank you so much for all that information. It's you don't hear this news anywhere else, and really appreciate it. We're here every day, and we're trying to stand up for Mother Nature and all our Indigenous relatives across not only Turtle Island, but across the world. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and up next, Robert Lilligren. We're going to talk a little politics. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
If the statistics say that 1 in 3 Native women and 1 in 6 Native men have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime, it means our whole community is affected by sexual violence. 1 is too many. Don't stand by, stand up. Don't engage in acts of sexual violence, and shut down the dirty jokes, the gossip, the victim blaming and shaming. As a community, we can change the way we respond. Contact the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition to attend a workshop to learn more.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
If you're an Indigenous person who has thought about going to college or completing your degree, then North Dakota State has a great event for you coming up. Thursday, November 18th is Indigenous Student Visit Day at North Dakota State University. The event is for Indigenous community members who have an interest in attending North Dakota State. Throughout the day, you'll get a tour of the campus, have a chance to connect with current students, professors, and staff members. You'll also learn about support services, financial aid, the application process, have optional breakout sessions, and more. Since the health and safety of the community is important at North Dakota State, face coverings are required in all classroom settings and strongly recommended in all indoor spaces when social distancing cannot be maintained. So take the opportunity to further explore your education options with Indigenous Student Visit Day at North Dakota State University on Thursday, November 18th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Register now online at ndsu.edu/visit and then click on the Weekend Visits tab to find Indigenous Visit Day. Again, search NDSU Indigenous Visit Day at ndsu.edu/visit.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by MN350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice.
Hey, we had Robert Lilligren on Tuesday, and we were talking a little politics because that was election day, and now some things have kind of shook out. So I'm really interested to see what Robert's perspective is. But before I get to Robert here, I want to give him a little applause here. All right, yeah, I got to use that button every once in a while. Yeah. Hey, Robert Lilligren, director of Native American Community Development Institute in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, and welcome and happy Native American Heritage Month. I just got to bring that up every day.
Robert, nice to see you. Happy American Indian Heritage Month to you too.
Right on. So, any surprises? Let's shake this out. I know the whole country is watching Minneapolis on a couple of these votes, and let's talk a little bit about that right away, if you don't mind.
Not at all. That's pretty much what I've been looking at for the last few days or since Election Day. So we had, as people locally know, but for all the listeners, we had 3 very important ballot initiatives. 2 of them had sort of directly to do with structure and government structure. And then we had a huge sweeping change within the city council elections. Our mayor got reelected. But the big one that I think was being watched most nationally was ballot question number 2. And that was a proposal to eliminate the Minneapolis City Charter amendment requirement to have a police department and rather create a Department of Public Safety, which would take a more holistic and community-based approach to community safety. And very hotly contested, hotly debated. The proposal really emerged from the civil unrest following George Floyd's murder here. And so that was one that people were watching. It was commonly called and incorrectly called the Defund the Police Amendment, right. But that's how people kind of nationally would identify it. And that failed, which I think was kind of a big surprise to a lot of people.
Yeah, I know. There was a lot of people out speaking that, and but a lot of people came out and voted a record number of votes, right, Robert?
Yeah, you know what? And thanks for bringing that up, Robert. We should have started with that, right? It was a record turnout for a municipal election. We have off-year municipal elections here, and boy, I remember some back in the day, not that long ago, that were down in the teens for turnout, maybe 17, 18%. We had over 50%, if my memory serves me, and it doesn't always. I think it was 53% turnout, which is about 10 points higher than the last cycle, and about 10% higher than the cycle before that. So I think that is the big story. I think you're exactly right. There was a whole new level of voter involved in this election.
You know, Robert, you are a former city council member, and there was another thing on the ballot that's really interesting for me, being outside of Minneapolis, living in St. Paul. What is your take on the power with I don't know, is it taken away from city council or?
Yeah, that was the point of the charter amendment that passed. I opposed it very publicly, but in Minneapolis we have kind of a hybrid system where executive authority historically has been shared between the council and the mayor, kind of a balanced approach. And the mayor throughout the years has gained more and more power and authority, but really the levels of operation, the levers of power for operations were really in the hands of the council. And I liked that as a city council member. We have a 13 district, we call them wards here, 13 ward government, so 13 council members who collectively were essentially the executive here. So someone like me, from Phillips neighborhood, kind of a screamy community activist, could get elected and have access to real authority and power. And the charter amendment that passed shifts this to a strong mayor system, where the department heads will report to the mayor. The mayor can limit access to resources to department heads for council members, because the department heads will report directly to the mayor. And I think it's quite a diminishment of the authority of the city council.
Does that mess up with checks and balances? I mean, I would think so, right?
Yeah, there's this kind of specious argument that it's more transparent because if something goes wrong, it's the mayor. But really, it's far less transparent because one person sitting in a room alone can make decisions. And formally, you needed a majority of the council, that's 7 people. The business had to be done in public. So there was sort of mandated transparency, and that's gone. That's gone, at least with the executive authority. So I think it's a bit of a loss. I'm sad. I liked our system of government. Now the city council will be just a straight up legislative body, much more limited authority.
That's kind of scary. And one of the reasons why I don't know, but I think, the mayor, for instance, could really have an agenda and beat it all thought out behind closed doors and then ram it through and then let the dust settle as it is on what he's doing. And there's no checks and balances.
Right. And there are checks and balances. It's a democracy. And I don't want to, be too alarmist, but I will say that that the measure was supported very, very heavily in the traditional high voter turnout wards in the city that are dominated by homeowners that are predominantly white and who feel like, it'd be way easier to deal with just one person, a mayor. And to me, I don't think the prime objective of democracy should be that it's easy, or of the government that's easy. I think it should be that it's representative, right? And that it allows as many voices at the table as possible. So I do feel like we're losing a bit of that. And another great story out of election night in Minneapolis is, for the first time, we'll have a majority people of color city council. And that's a strong majority, actually. It's 8 of the 13 council members are people of color, which I think is great news.
That's amazing. And I don't think that's been talked about a lot, because I did not know that until you said that here on Native Roots Radio.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. All I heard was, and I could be wrong, 5 former council people that were running and did not get reelected. Is that the right number?
Is that the right number? So two of the 7 retired. So that would leave 5 open seats. So that, I could do a quick finger count, but it's around that,
Ogimaa will do it. She was finger counting earlier.
Thanks. Okay. So, but it's 7 new council members. So 5 of them, right? 5 of them would have beat incumbents, and or 4 maybe, and so there's a real mix there too. There's 3 Democratic Socialists that were elected, that were endorsed by that party, which is also a first in our city. So, and then some other wards moved farther right. So it's kind of hard to see where this whole council is ending up. But the general sense is it shifted a little to the right, which in Minneapolis is still left of center, of course.
Well, let's finish up this segment and talk about rank voting and the mayor, because I was kind of shocked, because I don't know enough about it, where the first inkling of the votes came out and he had 43% and he was really excited like he won. And I'm going, no, well, I thought you had to have 50.
You have, before the final ballot, you have to have 50. So if you don't have it on the first, it goes to the second. If you don't have it on the second, it goes to the third and final ballot. And then who's ever in the lead wins, even if you don't break the majority, 50%. So you can have plurality winners. Several of the council races, or at least some, were plurality victories as well. And a lot of races went to multiple ballots. I do have to say, I wasn't calling races, but just sort of saying this one's going to go to multiple ballots, this incumbent isn't going to prevail, and just kind of looking around the map. And I was pretty right on all those. That several races went to multiple ballots and which is interesting. And I just want to make one more point about having a majority of people of color on our council, 8 out of 13, that happened for the first time this election cycle. And we simultaneously, the voters took away a lot of the authority and power of the council. And in my mind, those two things, are somewhat related. There was enough sort of status quo interest to protect the power and authority within the city.
Wow. Hey, we got like just 2 minutes left in the segment, but I want to touch on the next segment, St. Paul, of course, because, we're the capital city over here, but talk a little bit about them, and then also talk about New Jersey and what's happening there, and then also the other race.
Virginia.
Yeah, thank you, Virginia. And just touch a little bit on that, because I know there's speculations back and forth that this is things to come. And then I hear that the Democratic person in Virginia was more middle Democrat, and, the people, the more progressive like myself didn't show up. And there's all these different things that maybe it isn't showing, like the national press is saying that this is things to come. I think it's more what I've been reading, and it's more local that this happened, that a Republican won.
Sure. It's that seat, though, that's been such a bellwether historically of the next national election. So, yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Hey, I'm here with Robert Lilligren of NADKI, Native American Community Development Institute. And I got to really, before we go to the next segment, I got to apologize to you, because we both don't like being called Bob. And last time you were on, there was some loud noise and I freaked out and I lost my mind and I called you Bob. So I need to apologize, because that's a trigger for me too.
I think I did that to you once too, so we're even.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put that out there all over Turtle Island, that I apologize to Robert Lilligren, because his name is not Bob Lilligren and mine is not Bob Pilot. So, hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and we're going to be right back with Robert Lilligren of NADKI. Stay with us. Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me one. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
Spruce up your home with non-toxic vegan candles from Wisco Home Goods. They're a family-owned Midwestern business located in Madison, Wisconsin. Not only are their candles 100% sustainable, but owners Don and Jeremy also believe in giving back. Wisco Home Goods always feature a few cents in their Do Good, Smell Good campaign, where you can buy candles and have part of the proceeds go to local charities. So don't just buy scented candles from the big box store. Support a Midwestern company that supports our local communities. That's Wisco Home Goods. Order now at wiscohomegoods.com.
You've heard the screamers, you've heard the shouters. Well, now it's time to listen to a real conversation. Now it's time for the Rick Unger Show.
Weeknights from 8 to 10 p.m. on AM 950.
If you're an Indigenous person who has thought about going to college or completing your degree, then North Dakota State has a great event for you coming up. Thursday, November 18th is Indigenous Student Visit Day at North Dakota State University. The event is for Indigenous community members who have an interest in attending North Dakota State. Throughout the day, you'll get a tour of the campus, have a chance to connect with current students, professors, and staff members. You'll also learn about support services, financial aid, the application process, have optional breakout sessions, and more. Since the health and safety of the community is important at North Dakota State, face coverings are required in all classroom settings and strongly recommended in all indoor spaces when social distancing cannot be maintained. So take the opportunity to further explore your education options with Indigenous Student Visit Day at North Dakota State University on Thursday, November 18th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Register now online at ndsu.edu/visit and then click on the Weekend Visits tab to find Indigenous Visit Day. Again, search NDSU Indigenous Visit Day at ndsu.edu/visit.
For too long, American Indian tribes have faced a competitive disadvantage when litigating against powerful forces. With its American Indian law and policy practice, Robbins Kaplan, LLP, seeks to redefine excellence for high-stakes litigation in Indian country. They have worked hand in hand with tribes to implement the Tribal Law and Order Act, fighting against diminishment of tribal lands and natural resources, and improving public safety on reservations. The Robbins Kaplan American Indian Law and Policy Practice serves tribes and individuals on commercial, government investigations, agency and tribal boundary disputes, as well as personal injury. Founded and led by former United States Attorneys Brendan Johnson and Tim Purdon, their American Indian Law and Policy Practice exists to bring justice to tribal clients whose claims in the past have been dismissed or ignored due to their underdog status. If you or your tribe are facing legal issues, contact robinskaplan.com or call toll-free at 1-800-553-9910.
If you've been holding off on that new car purchase, don't wait any longer. Head over to Rudy Luther Toyota and test drive one of the new 2022 vehicles today. Start with the Corolla, a bold look and a responsive driving experience with the technology you need and all the safety features Toyotas are known for. And the Corolla Hybrid was named the Green Car Journal's Green Car of the Year. Both the original Corolla and the Hybrid model are at Rudy Luther Toyota, ready for a test drive. And make sure you test drive the ever-popular 2022 Prius too. Get your next vehicle today at Rudy Luther Toyota, 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lulia. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low of 39, then sunshine on Friday and a high of 56. Cafe Latte at Victoria Street and Grand Avenue in St. Paul provides an award-winning array of salads, sandwiches, and soups, treats from the bakery made fresh daily, and a pizza and wine bar. Check them out today at cafelatte.com.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
We are the Elusive Nation. Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, we're here with Robert Lilligren, of the director of Native American Community Development Institute here in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, and I just got to press the applause button again.
Thank you very much.
Got to use that once in a while, right? Hey, so let's talk a little bit nationally, but first, do you mind if we let's touch base a little bit about St. Paul?
Sure.
We got a mayor, a BIPOC mayor who has been reelected, and I was going to say it didn't seem like it was too much of a problem, and we're passing the renter protection thing that you can't raise the rent more than 3%, which I think nationally a lot of people were looking at. Robert,
that was a huge success for renters. Well done. In Minneapolis, we passed a ballot provision as well over rent control, but it's much more general. It empowers the city council to pass an ordinance. It wasn't nearly as specific nor as strong as St. Paul's.
Yeah, I just wanted to rub that on St. Paul, Minneapolis, but no, we don't. It isn't like when we were kids when, did you know this? In 1965, there was a couple of months in 1965 that Minneapolis and St. Paul were on different time zones.
I did not know that.
I'll send you that trivia because that amazes me, because when we were young, there was a major, especially when there was only there was two baseball teams, Minneapolis Millers and St. Paul Saints, and there was such a big rivalry. And I think these professional teams have kind of smoothed it out, but that just blows my mind.
Yeah. My mom is from St. Paul. That's where she grew up. My dad grew up in Minneapolis, just a few blocks from where I live now, in what was then a very Native neighborhood. And so I always joke, my parents were a mixed marriage. Minneapolis and St. Paul. The joke being, of course, they actually were a mixed marriage.
Right.
Right.
Hey, so can you explain if I was far off or if I was kind of circling around in a good way with the elections nationally? We're going to probably have a recount in New Jersey, but what happened?
It's close. And so there were two big governor's races that everybody is watching, Virginia and New Jersey. And they're always in these op years in between the presidential and the midterm. And so, of course, every political hack like myself watches those as sort of bellwethers to what might be coming up in the midterm elections.
Yeah. And do you think it's still happening that way?
We'll see. Things are so topsy-turvy. The New Jersey election, it could go to a recount. Murphy, the Democratic incumbent, of course, is on top right now. And so, very likely the winner. That is a seat that traditionally at this point in the election cycle flips parties. And so the fact that it didn't flip or apparently is not going to flip, it still could flip. That says something. It says some strength there.
Because Robert, I think I think I gotta get these out of my head before I lose them.
Yeah.
Interrupting you. I think what I read was that was the first time that Democrat had won back to back,
right,
for that office seat.
That's it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that incumbent got reelected. So you might say that's a good thing, right?
Right.
And
yeah.
If you look at the numbers, Biden took New Jersey by 16 points.
Right.
And Murphy just beat Ciccarelli or something, I think was his opponent, by 2.5. So if you use that as a gauge, Democrats lost 13.5 points in statewide. That so what is that saying? And that's even bigger than the loss in Virginia, where the Democratic incumbent did lose to the Republican challenger, but only by 2.5 points, but Biden only took it by 10. So actually, it's less of a loss for Democrats. They just lost, 12.5 points. So what is that telling? So everyone's kind of looking at those numbers, trying to figure out what we're going to do next year.
It might be just telling us that Trump wasn't running, and there was a lot of people that were voting against Trump as opposed to for a Democrat. I don't know.
That could be part of it. It could be a less threatening Republican candidate brings, suburban voters back. That's, I haven't looked that deep at the numbers, but I'm guessing this is going to be the strong element of that. But a really horrible part in Virginia was the challenger's messaging, and right. He was really just hammering on things, mostly critical race theory, and that he was going to Youngkin. That's it. I just need to remind him, was it Youngkin, the Republican governor-elect in Virginia, and his whole campaign was about frightening white people with, the word critical race theory, which isn't even taught in Virginia schools, but those big promises on day one, he's going to ban critical race theory from Virginia schools. And that motivated people.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And they didn't fight back and say it's rarely taught, and it's taught in college, if anywhere.
Right. And I think that is showing us what we're going to be looking at next year. It's going to be race-based fear-mongering. And it's very successful in motivating Republican voters. And so
it's crazy. Because I don't know if we talked about this, Robert, but I know I have some neighbors here that were talking a few months ago that I didn't realize, and what's really weird about 2021 is I didn't know who, for the most part, who voted for who. Do you know what I mean? I didn't know if you were I'd look at you a little strange. You say a few things that you might be Republican, or you might
tell.
And and now it's no problem to bring it up. And one of the race baitings that I heard a few months ago, and it still comes up, is that all these people from Mexico and the border are bringing in COVID, and that's why we have COVID blowing up now. And it's just like, where did you hear that?
Yeah.
It's like, and believe it.
Oh, for sure. And that's mild. That's mild for some of these conspiracy theories that people are really believing in, that's motivating them at the ballot box.
Yeah, I just I just pray for clarity. I pray for clarity, and when are they going to start making, I don't know, not making is the right word, but having Fox News really be called what it is, and it's not news. It's propaganda, and it's working.
It's working, and then there's also now even further right news platforms, right? They're really popularizing these messages, and it's amazing. It's just amazing to me that how they resonate, how they motivate voters in this day and age.
Is there that much fear out there? Is that the golden button that gets people motivated and afraid of I'm going to lose my house because maybe a Native American's going to get a house down the block? I don't know.
Right.
Go ahead, Ogimaa. I'm sorry.
The way that it was explained to me via the internet somewhere, it was basically the people who threw rocks at Ruby Bridges when they integrated the schools in the South in the United States don't want their children taught that they threw rocks at Ruby Bridges when they integrated the schools in the Southern United States. So this is the fear that they're afraid of. This fear isn't really that they think they're going to lose their house if a Native or somebody of color moves in down the block. It's that they worry that they're going to lose the sense of power and control that they have within the U.S. government.
Well, they're going to eventually because, like I said during the last election, we outnumber them, but also it looks like BIPOC people are soon going to be outnumbering the white people in the next 10 years, just as a population.
Right. And just like Ogimaa said, I saw that meme. I thought it was very powerful. I read it out to my husband as soon as I read it. I was like, whoa, listen to this. The rock throwing one, and it is. It's about power. It's about control. And then what you just said, Robert, that's it. That's that fundamental fear. And there's the replacement theory, all that conversation, but it's fear of losing power, fear of losing control. And in my heart of hearts, I've always felt like there's a sense that some white people who hold on to that fear of losing power are afraid that they will be treated as poorly as they treated people of color once they're in the minority. And I think that, to me, is a fundamental fear that's driving people.
I would really appreciate it if you just said that again.
No, and it's kind of hot and controversial. I don't think I've ever said it in public before, but I've long said it in private. Excuse me, and I've long believed it.
Yeah, that was
part that white people that feel that they need to hold on to power are afraid that they will be treated as poorly as they treated people of color when people of color are in a majority.
Yeah, that's heavy, and that's really a lot of food to thought on that. We got like a minute left, Robert. Anything going on in the Avenue? I know you're a celebrity and you're in
in my own mind. One thing that I do want to plug, it's incredible. We unveiled a community-based work of art by the amazing artist Courtney Cochran just yesterday. It's on the fence around where the Wall of Forgotten Natives, the massive homeless encampment was, just off Highway 55 and Franklin Avenue. And these big panels that were created by community that spell out never homeless before 1492. And I urge you to go to All My Relations Arts gallery, Facebook, or website. You can see it there. But if you're in the city or you're visiting the city, I would strongly urge you to go see it. It's tremendously powerful piece. Funded by MnDOT, funded by the Minnesota Department of Transportation.
That's amazing. And also what's amazing is I don't know if the word amazing is right, but just to drive by there after we knew and saw what happened in the Wall of Forgotten Natives, it's very powerful because for a while there they had it fenced in and blocked off that no one could get there, and now it's there and it's showing what the words are powerful. I just got to say that I'm
very
a little struck right now, but
yeah, it is amazing. And the artist Courtney, was intentional not to try to trigger people. It's meaningful. There's stories from the community. But yeah, I would urge you to go see it. Never homeless before 1492.
Wow. Well, Robert, thanks for doing double duty here Tuesday and now Thursday. Next thing you know, you'll be sitting in this seat. Hey.
I could never fill that seat, Robert.
Hey, thanks again, Peeny Gigi. We'll be right back. Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations. Oh, we're always sad wolves when there's no Wendy.
That's a really good call. That's hilarious. Yeah, well, that's serious stuff. Hey, before we get into our conversation, Ogimaa, that was pretty powerful what Robert Lilligren just said. I have heard that before, but I wanted him to say that again. That was super powerful.
It is, and it really is. It's telling, about the political climate in the United States right now, that there has been one group of people that's primarily held most of the representation in the United States, regardless of whether or not they were actually the majority of people in the United States. And those people tend to be older white males with lots of money. And quite frankly, the rest of the United States is sick of being governed by people that do not understand them. And we need more people of color, more people who are more regular, and more people who are not, inheriting their wealth, coming into these political spaces and making accurate and important political legislation and laws that represent us as American people all over the country. And I think that this is really starting to show, and there really is that fear that these kind of antiquated laws that we have now that force people of color to be in a place of fear within the country will go away. And they're afraid that there's going to be this reverse, that it will then be, for some reason, white people who may have to be afraid. But rights for everybody, what is that saying? Rights for everybody does not mean that you have less rights, because it's not pie. You're not getting a smaller slice of the pie. And I think that fear is, largely unfounded, but it's so disgusting and disappointing to see so many political candidates, especially in this era following Trump, run on that platform, that just absolutely false platform.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk a little bit, that segue into big things happening for Ho Chunk Nation at the Capitol. There's going to be a flag raised, I believe, tomorrow for the first time on Capitol grounds. There's all these things happening good too around Turtle Island, and one of it is Minnesota. That could be a game changer with the colleges and the free tuition. If there's some limitations to it, but it's a good start, Ogimaa.
Yeah, really. I think it's actually a great start, and was kind of looking into some things myself about it. So if you missed that, the University of Minnesota is offering free or reduced tuition to anybody that's an enrolled member of a tribe in Minnesota at 4 of their campuses. There are some income guidelines, but I believe for like a household of 3 or 4, it's like $100,000 a year or less, which is, I think, for most people in the country, it's or in the state, excuse me, it's pretty affordable. So that really is going to be a game changer to get more Native people in the state educated. And, congratulations to you and Ho-Chunk Nation as well for having your flag raised here in Minnesota at the Capitol for the first time. That is a big deal, especially considering, we talk a lot about like the Dakota, the Dakota banishment from Minnesota and their forced removal into North Dakota, but we don't talk that much about the Ho-Chunk people who experienced a very similar thing.
Right. And, someday soon I'm going to try and make it 12 nations here in Minnesota, and that would be the Ho-Chunk Nation be here, because we are from like Blue Earth in that area, and we were removed too during the 38-2 hanging period there, the Dakota uprising, like what they like to say, but we all know better what that was. Hey, I just want to switch another gear here with you, Ogimaa, and talk a little about Ron Turney and his battles for us. And I'm looking at a picture here on Facebook of drilling fluids that he is showing that what's happening with Enbridge up there and what they're really doing to our land. And it's funny, I talked to somebody and they said they're not surprised. We predicted this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what's so, I think, heartbreaking for people who have worked so hard in the Stop Line 3 movement, is that everything that we thought was going to happen was going to happen. If you have not yet, go over to Indigenous Environmental Network on social media, or follow Ron Turney. That's Turney. He has been following, using drones, what's really happening in the areas where Enbridge has destroyed water, land, and wild rice in northern Minnesota. And these pictures that he's put up just recently of what the sites near the headwaters look like, you can literally see oil slicks across the water near the Mississippi headwaters. And I just want to give a shout out to Ron Turney's currently running a fundraiser on GoFundMe. Ron is in need of some additional equipment to continue his efforts. He needs some new equipment, and winter is coming, and it's not on our side. So he needs to be able to keep following Enbridge and making sure that he's documenting what's happening.
He's a big time artist too. And I got to correct myself here, Ogimaa. It's the Ho-Chunk flag's going to fly over the University of Wisconsin-Madison at Bascom Hall on Friday. I said the Capitol, but going to Madison, that was kind of the capital. It's appropriate that the Ho-Chunk flag be first to be honored in this way. This land was ceded under duress to the United States through a violence pact 1832 treaty, which is how the UW-Madison came to occupy ancestral Ho-Chunk land. And so they talk about that a lot, that Ho-Chunk land and the effigy mounds where the Capitol is and the university is. So it's a shaded history in that part of the country, and definitely towards Ho-Chunk, but that we see that all over Turtle Island. And it's nice that Madison has the University of Madison has reached out to the nation, Ho-Chunk Nation. So I'm grateful for that, for those little steps, and inch by inch, it's a cinch, yard by yard. It's hard. I always like to do my land back acknowledgement, Ogimaa, and that's like, give us our land back.
Yeah, end of acknowledgement. We
Yeah.
just like our land back, please.
Okay.
Like we don't.
And those are
no
so
prayers involved in that one.
Yeah, they're so right. They're so cheek now. We're acknowledging land. It's nice, but it'd be nice to if you coughed up a few of the acres that you stole from our people over the years. So I just have to throw that out there. That's as controversial as I'll get on the air.
You know what I heard the other day, and it really made me laugh. It was another one of those memes, and it says a teacher walks over to a student and grabs their water bottle off the desk and puts it on her desk, and she says, "All right, I acknowledge that this water bottle belongs to that student." And everybody in the room just kind of sat quiet, and they were like, "But you need to give it back." And she goes, "That is what the problem with land acknowledgements is, because it doesn't do anything to actually give it back."
I'm gonna steal that and forget that we had this conversation, Ogimaa. That's stellar. I like that one. Yeah, land back for sure. Hey, I want to give a quick shout out to Robert Lilligren with this great, powerful show. And go ahead, Ogimaa.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Martin Keller, whose press releases are phenomenal, and I follow you all the time, and I appreciate your work. So thank you so much.
Oh, that's a great shout out because without the circle being full and completed, we're nothing. And that's the way it is. So I would like to end with these thoughts. We are not living on Earth. We are Earth. I would like if you're listening to the show, you are part of the resistance. From Chief Plentycoops, the ground on which we stand on is sacred ground. It is the blood of our ancestors. We need to resist, divest, join a group, run for office. Again, a quick shout out to Robert Lilligren of NACI, Ogimaa, and everyone that's listening that's part of this journey with us. It's almost been 4 years. We're still here. We are the 7th generation free Leonard Peltier.
I'm John Peterson of Ferndale Market, and I'm the 3rd generation to grow turkeys on our family farm in Cannon Falls.